Long, layered, with momentum and emotion in every sentence. I came back from the hardware store with a box of screws and a small bottle of wood glue. That was it. That's all I had in the passenger seat. Nothing special, nothing dramatic. I had planned to fix the drawer in the hallway dresser that kept sticking. It's the same drawer where we kept the batteries, the takeout menus, and that one flashlight that never worked when the power actually went out. Something about the idea of fixing that drawer felt grounding. Normal. Like if I could just keep fixing small things around the house, maybe the world would stay in place. The house was quiet when I got in, which wasn't odd. The kids were home from school by then, probably in their rooms. I kicked off my shoes at the door, set the bag down, and heard voices. Faint, but definitely coming from the kitchen. One adult, one of the kids. I wasn't trying to listen. I wasn't even moving toward them. I stood by the hallway mirror, just reaching to take off my jacket. That's when I heard her say it. Clear, measured, like it was a line she'd rehearsed. He doesn't need to know he's not your real dad until after college. He'll support us until then. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I wasn't even breathing. The kid, my son, was quiet. No response. Probably didn't know what to say. Maybe he didn't even understand what she meant. I wasn't supposed to hear that. She said it like I was a distant figure. Like I wasn't a man who had made pancakes every Saturday morning for years. Who had been there for every recital, every scraped knee, every birthday candle. I turned, stepped out of the hallway, and walked straight into the kitchen. I didn't try to sneak up. I wanted her to know I was there. She was leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone like she had just finished a grocery list. Our daughter was slicing an apple, totally oblivious. Our son was at the table, pale, staring down into his math notebook. She looked up when she saw me, and in that moment, something flickered across her face, not guilt, not panic, but irritation. Like I was the one interrupting something important. "What's going on?" I asked. My voice was too calm. I felt like I was outside my own body. Everything about the room felt off, the way the ceiling light buzzed, how the fridge hummed, the faint smell of bleach on the counters. Too clean. Too still. She tilted her head, raised one eyebrow. "Nothing." "Why?" "I heard what you just said." Her eyes narrowed. Then, with the audacity of someone born without a conscience, she smiled. A small, smug thing that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that?" Our son didn't look up. He just quietly closed his notebook, got up, and left the room. Not a word. Not a glance. She set her phone down slowly. "Well, I suppose there's no point pretending anymore, is there?" That was it. No panic. No apology. Just a calm announcement of a reality I hadn't been allowed to know. "You've been lying to me." "For how long?" She didn't hesitate. "Since before the wedding." My knees went weak, but I didn't sit down. She crossed her arms like this was some business negotiation. "I didn't plan for it to go on this long. But then you were so eager to play daddy. You didn't ask questions. You just stepped in. It worked. We had a system." "A system?" I echoed. My voice cracked. I couldn't help it. "Is that what I was to you?" "A walking wallet with a bedtime story subscription." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "You got a family. I got stability. We both got something." "And what about them?" I asked, motioning toward the hallway where the kids had disappeared. "What do they know?" "They know you're here. That you care. That's enough." My hands were shaking. My vision started tunneling. I backed out of the kitchen, out of that pristine room with its fake warmth, and made my way upstairs. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I just grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, walked out the front door, and drove until the gas light came on. That was the day everything cracked open. I ended up in a motel 2 towns over, the kind of place where the vending machines never work and the air conditioner rattles like it's choking on dust. I didn't sleep. I didn't even close my eyes. I just sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand, staring at the lock screen, wondering what the hell to do with everything I had just learned. She lied. From the beginning. The entire foundation of my life was built on her lie, and somehow she acted like I was the one overreacting. Like I was inconveniencing her by discovering the truth. Every late-night lullaby, every science fair, every "I'm proud of you" moment, it all meant nothing to her. It was just part of the script she needed me to play. I called my brother around 3 a.m. He's a lawyer. I didn't give him the whole story, just the essentials. I told him I needed to get a few things moving. Quietly. Without her knowing. He asked me twice if I was sure. I told him I wasn't, but I was doing it anyway. By sunrise, I had a plan. I went back home that morning just after 7. Not to talk. Not to argue. Just to get evidence. I told myself I'd stay 10 minutes tops. She was in the backyard on the phone when I pulled into the driveway. Her voice carried through the kitchen window as I walked in. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. He's not even going to fight it. I told you. He's too soft for that. Soft. That word stayed with me. Echoed. Burned. I went upstairs, grabbed the fireproof lockbox from the closet, pulled out birth certificates, tax records, school forms, anything that might help prove what I already knew. While I was in there, I opened the second drawer of her nightstand. The one she never let me touch. Buried beneath a stack of greeting cards and an old hairdryer was a cheap burner phone. Unlocked. No password. I should have stopped. I should have just walked out. But something in me snapped. The messages weren't just recent. They went back years. 2 different numbers. One saved as M, the other just a string of digits. Conversations full of contempt. For me. For the kids. Plans about getting through a few more years before she'd be free. A photo of our house with a caption, Golden Cage. Almost done pretending. She had planned this. Not just lied. Planned. She'd used me like a scaffolding for her little empire of deception, and when the time came, she was going to tear it all down with a smile on her face. I put the phone in my coat pocket, took one last look around the room, and left. She was still on the call when I passed by the back door. She didn't even notice me. At the lawyer's office, I dropped the phone, the documents, and the truth like live grenades on the table. Paternity fraud. Full financial cutoff. Eviction proceedings. I wanted every legal nail hammered in place before she even saw it coming. I still hadn't spoken to her. Not since that moment in the kitchen. But the silence between us was louder than any argument. It was the sound of something dead being dragged out into the daylight. And then came the moment I didn't expect. Later that night, I got a message from our son. Not her. Him. It was one line. No punctuation. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? I stared at that message for a long time. It felt heavier than anything I'd carried in my hands that day. I read it over and over, each time feeling it lodge deeper into my chest like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? Because I didn't know who I was saying goodbye to. Because I didn't know what was real anymore. Because I didn't want to see his face and wonder who he belonged to. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. There's no handbook for unraveling a family in one day and then trying to comfort the pieces. I needed time. But I knew I couldn't leave him in the dark either. Not completely. So I called. I didn't text. I needed him to hear my voice. He answered after the second ring. He didn't say anything. Just breathed on the other end. Hey, I said. It's me. Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? My throat tightened. Because it happened fast. And because I didn't want you to hear what you weren't supposed to hear. What does that mean? I sat down at the edge of the motel bed again. Same spot, same room, but it felt different now, like I was standing in the wreckage of a home I hadn't realized was burning. I heard something yesterday, something your mom said, something about me not being your real dad. Silence, then a sniffle. She said you'd say that you'd try to hurt us. The manipulation, so fast, so efficient. She was already twisting it. Already making herself the victim in a story where she was the architect of the whole lie. She told you that? I asked. She said you were mad about something and that you'd try to make us hate her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She hadn't just lied for years, she was actively using those lies to rewrite history, to poison the only connection I still had with the kids. And he believed her. Why wouldn't he? She raised him with that face, that voice, that carefully constructed version of truth. I was just the guy who made waffles and paid the bills. I'm not trying to make you hate her, I said carefully. I'm trying to figure out how to breathe again after realizing my entire life was something I didn't understand. More silence. Then his voice, barely above a whisper, "Are you still my dad?" That question shredded me. I wanted to scream yes. I wanted to break down the door of that house and drag him out of there and tell him the truth, tell him everything. But what was the truth now? Biology? Paperwork? Memories? I'm the man who's been there since the day you could walk. I'm the man who taught you how to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when you had the flu. I may not be the one who gave you your blood, but I gave you my life." He didn't respond. The line went dead a few seconds later. Whether he hung up or the call dropped, I didn't know. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, until the screen went black. The next morning, she finally reached out. She didn't call. Of course not. She sent a voice message. Her voice, all sugar and spite, poured out like venom disguised as concern. "I don't know what kind of midlife crisis this is, but dragging the kids into your drama is not okay. You think you're hurting me, but all you're doing is confusing them. You want to blow everything up because of one thing you overheard? Fine. But don't think you get to play the victim here. You walked out. That's on you." She was unraveling, not panicking yet, but she felt the ground shift, and she was trying to plant her flag before I could raise mine. But I wasn't here to argue. I was here to end the story she'd been writing for me without my permission. That same day, my lawyer served her the notice. The house was mine. It had always been in my name. She was being evicted. Financial support terminated. Emergency injunctions filed. Access to shared accounts frozen. Within 3 hours, I got another voice message. "You're insane. You think you can just cut me off? I gave you a family. You owe me. You're nothing without us." This time her voice cracked. She knew. The game was ending, and not on her terms. Then, at 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Thought you should know. She's talking to a lawyer about coming after you for emotional distress. She's planning something. No name, no context, just that. One more twist in a maze I didn't know I was walking through." By the time the 4th day rolled around, I had already stopped thinking like a husband and started thinking like a target. She hadn't just lied. She was strategic about it, viciously so. And now that she was losing control, she wasn't collapsing. She was recalibrating. My lawyer called me at noon, voice flat and unreadable, which meant he was bracing me for something. She filed a claim, emotional distress, defamation, and, get this, intentional abandonment. I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how absurd it sounded. She had lied to my face, lied to my kids, used me like a tool in her 5-act play of deception. And now she was suing me for leaving? "She's claiming that you walked out without warning," he continued, "and that you're deliberately trying to damage her and the children emotionally. She told our kid I'd try to make them hate her." I said, "This is just Act 2. She's also asking for temporary financial reinstatement while this is settled." Of course, that was the real goal. Keep the cash flowing. Keep the illusion of family intact long enough to extract the last few drops of usefulness from me. She wasn't panicking. She was plotting. That night, I decided to go back to the house, not to confront her, not yet, but to talk to the kids directly. I didn't trust anything she was telling them. If she could manipulate a court, what was stopping her from reprogramming our children into believing I was the villain? I texted our daughter first. She was younger but sharper than most adults I knew. Quiet, observant, and until now always warm with me. She replied in 3 words, "Please don't yell." That hit me harder than I expected. When I arrived, the porch lights were off. The living room curtains were drawn. It looked like a house in hiding. I knocked twice. She answered the door like she had just gotten back from a spa, makeup done, silk robe, glass of red wine in hand. She didn't even blink when she saw me. "So you're breaking the no-contact agreement already?" she said, like she was reciting legal jargon from a soap opera. "There is no agreement," I said. "Not yet. You shouldn't be here. I'm not here for you." The hallway was quiet. I could see our daughter at the top of the stairs, sitting cross-legged with her arms around her knees. Her eyes were rimmed red. Our son stood behind her, shoulders hunched, looking older than he should. "You have 2 minutes," she said, stepping aside with a theatrical sigh. I didn't go inside. I spoke from the door. "I need you both to know that I love you. That's not changing. No matter what she says. No matter what anyone says. But I found out something that hurt me. something that made it impossible to keep pretending everything was okay. Our son spoke first. She said you're trying to punish us for something she did. No. I'm trying to protect you from becoming pawns in a lie I wasn't allowed to see. She's been crying, our daughter said quietly. She said you're trying to ruin her life. She ruined her own life the day she decided I wasn't worth the truth. I looked at both of them and felt something shift. They weren't sure what to believe, but they were listening. That's all I needed for now. Behind me, she cleared her throat loudly, theatrically. Your 2 minutes are up. I turned to leave, but she wasn't done. You're pathetic, you know that? She hissed, keeping her voice low so only I could hear. You think you can take everything away from me? You think they'll stay on your side? You're nothing without the house, the image. When they see who you really are, they'll come back to me. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. She was cracking. Finally, as I walked back to the car, I saw the curtains move in the upstairs window. One of the kids was watching, probably both. She'd started a war, thinking I'd fold. But I wasn't folding. I was just getting started. And if she wanted to escalate, I was ready to take it all the way that I didn't expect the letter. A thick, cream-colored envelope, hand-delivered to my lawyer's office. No stamps, no return address, just my full name written in her handwriting. The same sharp, elegant script she used to label the spice jars when we moved in together. Inside was a 4-page statement. Not a letter, a statement, like she was testifying in a court of public opinion, not writing to the man whose life she hollowed out from the inside. It started with, to clarify the narrative, as if this were some editorial she was submitting for review. She wrote about our mutual understanding from the beginning, how I knew she was in a complicated situation, and how I chose to step into a role she never forced on me. She called our relationship an agreement between adults. But the kicker was on page 3. She claimed I was never lied to, that I had suspected the truth all along, and chose to ignore it in favor of emotional security. She painted herself as the reluctant co-star in my fantasy of fatherhood. Said I had always known the kids weren't biologically mine, and that I was now weaponizing truth to punish her for falling out of love. Falling out of love. That was her phrase. Not betrayal. Not manipulation. Just some poetic lapse of interest. Like she misplaced her affection in a drawer and forgot where she put it. She ended it with a warning. If you continue with these destructive actions, I will have no choice but to pursue full custody and reveal the mental instability you've been showing in recent weeks. Mental instability. My lawyer read it twice, folded it neatly, then looked at me and said, she's setting up a case for parental alienation and psychological unfitness. She's not trying to win in court. She's trying to wear you down before we even get there. I didn't respond. I was staring at the word custody like it was a loaded weapon. The kids. That was her new leverage. Not love. Not truth. Control. If she couldn't bleed me financially anymore, she'd try to amputate what was left of my heart. So I made a decision. The next day, I filed a motion to establish legal paternity testing court-mandated. Not to humiliate anyone. Not to rub salt in the wounds. But to put a legal fact on the record. No more gaslighting. No more interpretations. I wanted the truth in ink. That night, my brother called me. You should know, he said. There's chatter online. Private Facebook group. Moms in your area. Someone posted a long rant. Sounds like her. I didn't have to ask for screenshots. He sent them without being prompted. There she was, posting under a throwaway name, describing me as abusive, financially controlling, emotionally erratic, claiming I was a distant father who suddenly snapped, that I was now trying to destroy her out of bitterness. And the comments were full of sympathy. Women calling her brave, telling her to protect herself, asking if they could send her resources for shelters, legal funds, emotional support. It was like watching a masterclass in victimhood performance. She had flipped the script so hard it could have made your neck snap. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I was already 3 steps ahead. I had recordings. From the house's nanny cam system she forgot we had synced to cloud backup. Audio from the day she told our son I wasn't his real father. Video from nights she laughed on the phone about how easy it was to keep him in the dark. Proof. Undeniable, untouchable proof. I sent it to my lawyer. Then I sat down and wrote a message not to her, but to the kids. It wasn't an emotional plea. It wasn't a confession. It was clarity. I told them I'd requested paternity tests not to push them away, but to clear the air. That no matter what the results said, I was still the man who raised them. And no matter what lies they'd been told, my door was open. Always. I didn't hear back that night. But the next morning, there was a knock at the motel door. When I opened it, my daughter was standing there. Hoodie. Backpack. No makeup. No expression. She said if I ever came to see you, she'd call the cops, she said. Do you believe her? I believe she's scared. And scared people lie more when they're cornered. She walked in and sat on the bed like she had been coming there for weeks. She didn't cry. Not once. She sat on the edge of the motel bed like she was holding her breath underwater, tight-shouldered, wide-eyed, but calm in that eerie way that kids get when they've grown up hearing one version of the truth and then, all at once, it splits open. She told me you left because you met someone else, my daughter said, arms wrapped around her knees. She said you were going to start a new life and that you didn't want the old one to get in the way. I didn't interrupt. I let her speak even when every word stabbed me in the ribs. She told me to forget you. Said you were never really my dad in the first place, so it's not like it mattered. That's when she finally looked at me. And it wasn't the kind of look a daughter gives a father. It was the look of someone trying to measure whether they'd been abandoned or protected. I needed to see if that was true, she whispered. I reached into the drawer and handed her a flash drive. The one with the recordings. I didn't explain it. I didn't frame it. I just offered it quiet and steady. What is it? The parts she didn't tell you. She didn't ask for more. She just tucked it into her hoodie pocket like it was a loaded weapon and nodded. I didn't know if she'd listen. I didn't ask. Some truths aren't told, they're discovered. She stayed for almost 2 hours. Told me about how her mom had been having quiet conversations on the phone that would stop the second either kid walked in. How she'd started talking more and more about plans, but never said what they were. How she'd made them all feel like they were guests in their own home, just waiting to be relocated. She doesn't talk about you like a person, she said. More like a problem she needs to solve. That sentence hit me like a gut punch. Not because it was cruel, but because it was precise. That's exactly what I'd become to her mother. A loose end. Something untied that could unravel everything if not cut away. I told her she didn't have to choose. That I wasn't here to tear her away from anything. But that I also wouldn't let a lie rewrite the past or shape her future. Before she left, she asked me something that nearly broke me. If the test says we're not yours, are you still going to want to see me? I didn't let the emotion show, but it was there, clawing at the back of my throat. Listen to me, I said. You are mine in every way that counts. There's not a piece of my life that didn't have you in it. And nothing changes that. She nodded. That was all she needed. Not a promise. Just a stake in the ground that told her I wasn't moving. She left through the back entrance. Didn't want to be seen. Said her mom was already suspicious she'd been talking to me. Said she checks their phones now. Tries to catch them slipping. It's like she's scared of shadows she made herself, she said as she walked out. That same night, my lawyer texted me 2 words. She knows. Apparently, she found out I had the recordings. The flash drive. The legal motion for paternity testing. And she did what cornered manipulators always do when the lie becomes public. She doubled down. The next morning, I got an email from a local family advocate. Clearly one of her recruited sympathizers. A woman I'd never met. Writing on behalf of a concerned mother of 2 who's experiencing threats to her parental stability. She offered to mediate. Said she could help us find peaceful resolution for the children's sake. I didn't respond. Instead, I made one final move. I reached out to the biological father. He didn't know. Not really. He suspected something years ago, but she told him I knew and was okay with it. He'd backed off, stayed away, moved on. But when I contacted him, cold, blunt, with dates and facts, he was silent for almost a minute. Then he said, "She told me you were part of the plan." "What plan?" He hesitated. "To keep the lie until they were 18. Then she'd phase you out. She said once they were old enough, they wouldn't need you anymore." The audacity, the engineering. I wasn't just a placeholder. I was a bridge she planned to burn behind her. But bridges collapse both ways. The court date for the emergency hearing was set for a Friday morning 2 weeks earlier than expected. My lawyer said someone on the judge's end must have seen the urgency. Or maybe it was the pile of evidence we dropped on their desk, the recordings, the texts, the burner phone logs, the Facebook screenshots, the testimony from the biological father. By then, the kids had stopped responding to her. My daughter sent one final message: "You used all of us. I don't want to talk until you start telling the truth." Our son blocked her number outright. He moved in with my brother temporarily, said he didn't feel safe at home anymore. That was the moment she lost her grip. Because when you've spent years choreographing every step of a lie, the last thing you expect is for the dancers to walk off stage. The day before the hearing, she made one last play. She showed up at my motel. Not yelling, not crying, not hysterical. She wore this sharp blazer like she was heading to a TED Talk. Knocked twice, waited. I opened the door but didn't let her in. She smiled like nothing had happened. Like we were two neighbors discussing fence repairs. "Let's not go through with tomorrow," she said. "It doesn't have to be this messy." I didn't answer, just looked at her. "I'm willing to compromise. I'll tell the court it was all a misunderstanding. That you overreacted. You can move back into the house if you want. You'll have access to the kids again. But we stop all this nonsense." She actually believed that was an offer. She thought the crumbs she was handing me were something I'd crawl back for. "You think this is about the house?" I asked. "About access? It's about survival," she snapped. "You're going to humiliate your children in court? Force them to be witnesses in your little meltdown." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, now standing inches from her face. Her perfume was the same. It always smelled expensive and artificial. "You've been living in your own script for so long you forgot the rest of us have lines too. I'm not playing anymore." She laughed. Not loudly, not mad, but that laugh you hear from someone who's finally realized the game is slipping through their fingers. "You're going to destroy your own family just to prove a point," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm going to destroy the lie that you called a family." She stepped back, regrouping. Her eyes shifted like she was calculating something, reaching for a backup plan that no longer existed. And then she said it. "I was protecting them from you." That line almost made me lose it. Because it wasn't just a lie, it was her insurance policy. The story she'd been telling herself in case all else failed. I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door in her face. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there, still trying to figure out what cards she had left to play. But there were none. The next morning, court was quiet. The judge listened, reviewed every document, every recording. When the paternity tests were presented, her lawyer asked for a recess. She leaned in, whispering furiously. Her entire body looked stiff, like a mannequin about to topple. But it was too late. The results were read aloud. I wasn't the biological father. The room went still. I didn't react. Not a twitch. Not a blink. I'd already mourned that reality. I wasn't there for biology, I was there for the truth. The judge granted full temporary custody to me, citing emotional manipulation, paternity fraud, and evidence of coercive behavior. She was given a court-ordered psychological evaluation before being allowed unsupervised visitation. Her face went blank. No tears. No tantrum. Just nothing. Like the hard drive finally crashed. She walked out before the session even ended. My kids were waiting outside the courthouse. They didn't need words. We just sat on a bench for an hour watching the cars pass. Just being still. Just breathing. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning in someone else's fiction. We moved into a rental house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, small porch, older floors, walls that creaked with the wind, but it felt like neutral ground. like somewhere we could exist without her shadow hanging over us. The kids adjusted fast. Faster than I expected. My son started waking up earlier, making his own breakfast, packing his bag without being told. My daughter brought home books she never used to read, psychology, philosophy, even some legal case studies. I asked her once if she understood any of it. She said, not yet. But I want to. They were both looking for footing in a world that had flipped. I let them. I didn't hover. I didn't preach. We had dinner at the table every night and talked like normal people, which, ironically, felt brand new. And for a moment, things were still. Until the letter arrived. It came in a yellow envelope, handwritten like before, no return address. But this time, it wasn't for me. It was addressed to our daughter. I only found out because she showed it to me. She stood in the hallway holding it like it was a dead animal. She left it at school, she said. With the counselor. Asked them to give it to me personally. Said it was important. I took it, opened it slowly, ready for venom, ready for more performance. But this wasn't her voice. Not exactly. It was desperation disguised as warmth. She wrote like a mother writing from a prison cell, full of remorse, regret, and just enough manipulation to sound believable. She claimed the recordings were taken out of context. That she was under stress, pressured by people who never supported her, and that I had twisted everything to make her look like a villain. She said she missed them. That she loved them. That everything she did to preserve the family unit. The final line was the most grotesque thing I'd read yet. I never lied. I only delayed the truth to protect your innocence. I watched my daughter read it again. She didn't cry. She didn't crumple the paper. She just folded it, walked to the kitchen trash, and dropped it in like it was junk mail. She thinks if she says it pretty enough, it won't stink, she said. The next day, we got a notice. She was filing an appeal. Trying to overturn the custody ruling. Claiming procedural error, emotional duress, and get this new evidence. I went straight to my lawyer, ready for whatever fake story she'd conjure up this time. But he looked up at me from his desk and said, "It's not her." "What do you mean?" "The appeal wasn't filed by her directly. It was filed by a third-party advocate." My stomach twisted. "Who?" He slid over the printed name. "Marcy Holloway." I didn't recognize it. Not at first. But then I remembered 6 years ago, one of her mom friends, the over-involved kind, always offering parenting advice and weird unsolicited gifts. I hadn't seen her in years. Apparently, she was still around. And apparently, she had been quietly funding my ex's legal costs through some backdoor family rights group. "She's made this personal," my lawyer said. "And this woman is loud. She's already talking to media contacts. Painting this as a case of father retaliates against mother using legal system after divorce. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a campaign. And once again, the kids were in the middle of it. But what they didn't know, what Marcy didn't know, was that I'd been documenting everything. Every interaction. Every veiled threat. Every social media post. Every counselor who confirmed the pressure the kids were under in that house. Every whisper they'd now try to turn into a scream. I looked at my daughter. I looked at my son. And I knew one thing, this wasn't about just ending a lie anymore. It was about making sure no one ever tried to rewrite our truth again. The story went public 3 days before the appeal hearing. It started with a blog post, anonymous, of course, on some activist parenting site. Title, "When Fathers Weaponize the System, A Story of Survival." It was well written. Too well written. Clearly ghostwritten, probably by Marcy herself. It painted her as the victim of a smear campaign, accused me of using my financial advantage to erase a mother, and called the paternity fraud claim a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. They made it sound like I was the storm that shattered a peaceful family, not the anchor that kept it from drifting into chaos. The article went viral in a small way, shared on local forums, reposted on Twitter, sprinkled through online parent groups. But that wasn't the real hit. The real damage came from a local news station. A puff segment, but still. Mother fights to regain custody after sudden estrangement. B-roll of her walking into the courthouse, looking tired but noble. No context, no background, just a narrative with a sobbing headline and sad piano music. She played it perfectly. She stood on the courthouse steps after the first hearing with tears in her eyes and said, "All I ever wanted was to raise my kids in peace. Now I don't even know if I'll see them again." And the worst part? Some people believed her. Comments poured in. Strangers calling me a monster, an abuser, a manipulator. People who had never met me suddenly deciding I was unfit, unworthy, unsafe. They didn't want truth, they wanted a villain to hiss at. That night, my son came into the living room with his phone in his hand. "Do I respond?" he asked. He'd seen the articles, the posts, the lies. "No," I said. "We don't scream into fires. We put them out." He nodded slowly, but I saw the pain in his eyes, the confusion, the betrayal, not just by his mother, but by the world that applauded her. We knew what we had to do. We gave the media the truth. Not rage, not revenge, just unfiltered, irrefutable evidence. We released the clips, the audio of her saying I wasn't the real dad, the messages to her friends talking about how long she could keep the lie going, the receipts from her fake accounts, even the psychological evaluations from the custody hearing. No edits, no commentary, just cold, steady light. And the tide shifted. One of the parenting bloggers who'd reposted her story took it down with an apology. Another journalist reached out, this time to me, wanted to do a balanced piece. I declined. I wasn't interested in balance. I was interested in finality. The appeal was dismissed in 20 minutes. The judge didn't even let it go to full hearing. Called the motion an abuse of process and added a note to the case: repeated attempts to manipulate narrative in and outside of court will be grounds for sanctions. Her face when she heard it was the face of someone watching the stage lights go out. No audience, no encore, just silence. As we walked out of the courtroom, she tried to speak to the kids. "Just one word, please." My son kept walking. My daughter turned to her and said, "You don't get to beg when you never told the truth." She didn't follow us. She just stood there, alone, gripping the railing with both hands like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The media didn't show that part, but we remember it. We didn't celebrate. There was no champagne, no group hug, no cinematic music playing in the background as we walked out of the courtroom. Just the sound of footsteps on concrete, the occasional honk of a passing car, and the weight of something finally being over. Freedom, I learned, doesn't feel like fireworks. Feels like quiet. We moved again. Not far, just far enough to start fresh without old eyes watching. No more school drop-offs where she might appear around the corner. No more second-guessing every knock at the door. The kids got new schools. I got a new job. Not because I had to, but because I wanted a clean slate that didn't have her fingerprints on it. People ask me if I feel bitter, if I regret staying as long as I did, if I hate her. I don't. Hate gives her too much. I've seen what she does with attention. I'm not feeding it anymore. But I do remember. I remember everything. The lies weren't random, they were deliberate, calculated, weaponized with a smile. She didn't stumble into deception. She built it, nurtured it, lived inside it. And then she got angry when I refused to play along. And the worst part? She could have told me the truth. That's the part that never goes away. She could have said it years ago. I wouldn't have loved the truth, but I would have respected it. I could have adapted. I could have forgiven. What I couldn't do, what I'll never do, is keep living inside someone else's fiction. The kids still ask questions sometimes. Did she ever love you? I think she loved what I could give her. Do you think she loved us? I think she loved the version of you that kept her world together. They understand more than I wish they did. But they're strong. Stronger than me sometimes. My daughter writes now. Fiction mostly, but she's good. Too good. She knows how to twist a sentence into something sharp. My son stopped asking if he's mine. He just calls me Dad. There was one last moment. Quiet. Unscripted. Months later. We were sitting in the backyard, grilling burgers on a weekend. It was just us. Nothing extraordinary. And he said, out of nowhere, "You didn't have to stay when you found out." I looked at him, tongs still in hand. He didn't blink. Didn't smile. Just said it. "I'm glad you did." I didn't say anything back. I just flipped the burger and swallowed whatever emotion was threatening to rise. Because in that moment I realized something simple and absolute: truth wins. Not fast. Not loud. Not easy. But it wins. And if you're ever in this position, if you're ever staring down the barrel of a lie that tried to shape your whole life, don't flinch. Don't chase revenge. Don't play their game. Just walk away. Let it burn. And when it's ash, build.